to start off with tunnel and mining, I wanted to highlight some of the devices that capture the information because it's necessary to understand the devices that take that information and collect it before we talk about what Design X will utilize that information for, right? So in the market, there are all kinds of scanners. There are hundreds of scanners out there now, and this is just a small sampling of different ones that we see on a regular basis in the market, right? Between the Faro and the Hexagon, Leica, and Surphaser and Artec here, we have all kinds of different devices, and you see these are primarily, if you're familiar with any of them, primarily focused on long-range applications. So they capture information, what I like to say, in the size of your room or your entire building to an entire job site. So that's the category these scanners are focused on. And some of them are different volumes, right? And they have lots of different types of data collection examples. Like the first one on the top left, you walk around with it and it captures data as you're walking. And some of them are static where you sit it down and it takes a bunch of measurements from one position. But these types of devices are used to capture information in what I consider a long-range market, right? And today's example, we're going to use the example of scanning tunnels and all the different types of things that you might want to use Design X to do by scanning tunnels in mining applications, in rail applications. So you can take that information that comes from those scanners and you can load it up. And on the top right-hand side, you'll see that we have this idea where you can take multiple scans and align them together. And you can load up and see the texture with different survey style point shaders. You can see the texture and color if it's available on that type of device. You have all kinds of meshing options, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Large data scale modeling, which again is another thing that I'm going to highlight here in a little bit. But we'll focus on the fact that you can take that data and you can create meshes. Our wheelhouse in this market is when you take scans from those long-range devices and you need highly detailed models and extracting different objects from those models and using those to create different types of plans and measurements and information such as the volume, area, cross-section, and things like that. And then, of course, we have that ability to take that information, thicken it to create it for 3D printing or send it on to CAD and other types of applications. So for this tunnel application, what we want to do is go ahead, and I have an application that I have loaded up on inside of Design X. Now, the focus of today is not for me to sit and do a demonstration of Design X, but I do want to load up an application where we've utilized the software and explain some of the things that we've done inside of Design X and explain some of the deliverables that are available there. So just a second. Let's get that loaded up. And now that you can see this, you see here that we have a large scale point cloud of a tunnel that we're going to rotate around and zoom in and out. And what you can do with this is it's a point cloud over here, but you have the ability in here to come over and merge and triangulate this object into a mesh. So I'll go ahead and turn that off and we'll just show what the result is. So you can triangulate that into a polygon mesh. Now, some of the simple things that you can do right away is you can just visualize and use this. There's lots of different applications for visualization of this polygon mesh and just using it to do some analysis and figure out what's going on in the design process. One of those things is if I come over to this view and I go to walkthrough, Walkthrough mode allows you inside of Design X. You can see here that I can move back and forth, up and down, and it changes the camera mode inside of Design X from the outside of the world, looking at the world mode, as the way I like to describe it, to a camera mode where I am moving the camera around inside here. So you can see I can just use my mouse and scroll and look around, and I can even just come in here and just scroll almost like I'm in a video game, right? And I can just scroll through, and I can come in and use this for visualization purposes. Now, for mining examples, they do this all the time. They come in and they need to know, oh, is that the section where there is this bulkhead or whatever? You know, there's all kinds of different types of information that they can gather literally just from walking around and coming inside of the mesh and walking around and looking at things. So you can see here how awesome that is to be able to just come in here and visualize things by zooming in and walking around. So that is the walkthrough mode, which is really valuable. A lot of people don't realize that we have that. It's kind of this lesser used piece of functionality. Now, I will say it's not the most intuitive tool in the world to use. So you can, when you go into that walkthrough mode, you just remember that you have to use your mouse and scroll with the wheel and look around, and that'll kind of get you started because it's a little different than some other interfaces like playing a video game, right? So that is the walkthrough mode. Another thing that you can do is you can just calculate volume with this. So there's lots of different applications where people might want to take a section of the mine and figure out what that volume is, how much material. So if I just click on this volume mesh over here on the left-hand side, you can see that I can just, over in the properties, calculate the volume of that object right there. And I can get that information just by clicking on the object and pulling the volume from it. Another thing is you can see that I can get the surface area from this entire tunnel as well just by clicking the area there. But I've seen sometimes people want the area based on the cross sections. So like sometimes you might want to divide up a section there, and then you might want to just take one little cross section. And you see here that if I have these cross sections, I can come in and select that area number 2 and then calculate the area of just that cross section there. That is really valuable. That's another really interesting thing that I've seen people do is they're just using it for those volume calculations. I've seen people with large piles of material, right? They scan the entire material, calculate a best fit of plane to the ground, and then calculate the amount of volume of material that they have sitting on that ground there. So that is another really neat use case for Design X there. Now, another thing that you can do is you can come over and you can cut cross sections through it here. So if I just turn on the volume one, you'll see here, I can cut a cross section, sketch through that, and you see here I have a couple that were done before. So if we cut a cross section of a sketch in this instance, let's use this one, double click it and go inside of the sketch mode. And we'll go ahead and turn the mesh off, go normal to the plane. You'll see that we have this cross section of the mine, and you can draw out some envelopes. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this so you can see what we have here. This is the cross section between the plane and the polygon. And what we've done here is you can take this rectangle tool and I can just come in and select all of it, and it will best fit a rectangle to that information that's there. And then I can actually re-snap this if I wanted to re-snap this anywhere on here. And then you have the ability to also, in these cross sections, if you wanted to grab a spline, for example, and best fit a spline to it, as you saw on that other screenshot here, and then hit OK. And actually I have to hit OK. There we go. Accept. OK. But you can draw splines and best fit it there. So we'll just do this here. There, we'll do it that way. And you see that it's going to best fit a spline to that whole area. And then when you hit OK, that you have that spline that you've drawn, which is essentially a CAD object, right? You just hit undo, and I'll put the other one back in there, what we had before. So you can see how you can cut cross sections and sketches throughout the mesh to create different dimensions at different checkpoints throughout the mining tunnel there. So if we go ahead and turn that off, another example here that we'll turn on is you could take a section of this mesh, we'll hide that sketch, and you can create surfaces from that. So here we went ahead and we took that mesh, and I'll hide the mesh there, and we ran it through our auto surfacer. And you could have done this for the entire thing, but I was just taking a certain section of that and create a surface, NURB surface from that, and save that out as a step IGES, neutral, all those different types of CAD formats. So if you needed to extract some of this information and get it over to another software package, I know that some of this long-range stuff is done in, for example, like an Autodesk application or something like that. You can write out these CAD objects and send them over there and bring them in. So these are just some of the applications that we see throughout the mining industry, and these are just a tip of the iceberg of the ones that we've seen here. But I just wanted to highlight those before we jump back over to our PowerPoint here. So now we are back over on our PowerPoint. You see here that there's a whole host of different tunnel and mining applications that are extremely valuable for Design X.